This Matchday 2 Picks episode of the Premier League Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog. Underdog's got a brand new offer for new customers. Play just $5 and get $50 bonus funds when you sign up with code PLGP. Welcome everybody to the Premier League Gambling Podcast. My name is Barry Penaluna, coming to you from Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England. And this is a special episode as I'm running the show solo tonight. As you can see, no Malcolm by my side. So it's a solo Baz episode. So probably going to be the best episode yet. Certainly the best episode this season. I think I've done one show in the past on my own, and anyone who was around in the early days of this podcast can probably remember it well because it was the stuff of legends. I absolutely nailed everything. I'm sure it still gets talked about in the Discord channels and things like that by some of the OGs. Solo Baz was a legend for a little while. But here we are again. Let's see if I can live up to that again this week. So anyway, Malcolm has failed to get off his sun lounger for this one. Claims that technology has failed him. I think anybody who knows Malcolm probably suspects it is him that has failed technology. As always, I'm assuming the IT help hasn't been able to bail him out on this occasion. Either that or he's just sat somewhere stuffing his face on Turkish kebabs and drinking FA's lager. But who can blame him? He's on his holidays, so we'll let him off. Hopefully, he's having a lovely time. He's in the chat, I can see, already being rude. So yeah, hopefully Malcolm's having a lovely time. I haven't had any kind of update from him as to how his holiday is going, so maybe he might let us in on a bit of that. Disappointingly, we've had no video action provided. Is he even in Turkey? Nobody knows. There's no evidence to prove it. By this stage in my holiday last year, I had made picks from the sea, from the desert, by the beach, thing from Malcolm so far. Turkey, who knows? Let's find out over the next few days. He's promised me going to get a few shorts up this weekend with a few picks. Keep an eye out for that on the YouTube channel if you can. So yeah, expect a slightly different show, a bit less lifestyle, less kick-off action. So if you're waiting to find out if that last shot on target resulted in a goal, you'll have to keep waiting, just like I have. I reckon it's in this time. I reckon I'm 1-0 up, but who knows? We'll find out when Malcolm returns. We'll have a brief recap on Matchday 1 and how that went for us before firing into Matchday 2. Yeah, first week in the hutch, and yeah, somewhere along the way, I need to remember to do things like ad reads and press all the buttons. I've now got to do everything that I don't normally have to do. So we'll see how we get along. We'll blunder our way through it, and worst case scenario, I can edit it all afterwards and get rid of all the nonsense. But anyway, we'll get through it. We've done it before. We can do it again. And as Callum says, I used to go live on TikTok quite often. So this is me and my element now. Solo Baz. I don't need Malcolm to get me through this. Anyway, first of all, before we jump into it, I'm going to quickly tell you about a new sponsor that is exclusive to our show. We have mentioned it in the last few weeks, but we're brought to you by Metaspins Sport, your destination for crypto sports betting. Sign up today and get 100% risk-free bet. Plus, you'll also receive a $25 bonus on your first deposit. Get started today at metaspins.com/sports. That's metaspins.com/sports. First ad read done on time. All gone well so far. It does feel like ages since the last episode. We didn't do a midweek one because Malcolm was away and there wasn't a lot of stuff going on. So we left it. And here we are back into another full weekend. I did enjoy last weekend. We'll get to the football in a little bit of lifestyle. A lot's happened since we were last on the show. Not just Malcolm leaving the country, allegedly. I've been all over the UK in the last week. I went to Hull last Thursday for a gig. I then went to Manchester on Friday. Tuesday, I was back in Hull. I'm now in Newcastle. I'm at another gig tomorrow. So I have seen in the last Kneecap, Fontaine's DC, Coldplay. Tomorrow I'm seeing Kings of Leon, Cortinas, Ratings, Snuts, loads of good bands. August has been an absolutely tremendous week for me. Manchester was brilliant last week. Fontaine's DC musically were absolutely brilliant. But the day was made for me by watching Kneecap, who I haven't paid tons of attention to before. But the atmosphere when Kneecap come on was absolutely bonkers. First time I've been in a mosh pit for many, many years. Not through choice. Initially, I just got dragged into it. Clearly, I thought I was in the safe zone. Turned out there was no safe zone at a Kneecap gig. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was suffering the next day. And there was a little story coming out of that. So I took the oldest daughter to see Fontaine's and Kneecap last week. And here's a little picture which tells a story in 4 pictures. I'm going to pop it on the screen now. In the top left corner, there's us before the gig in the afternoon. It's nice and sunny, early days. There's Chloe there with a bucket hat on. She's got a little bright, very distinctive bucket hat. That was before Kneecap come on. One song in, dragged into a mosh pit, being thrown around everywhere. The hat was lost. That was it, gone. Or so it seemed. Until about 2 hours later. So there you see in the top right corner, you'll see me and Chloe after Kneecap, before the Fontaines. Chloe with no hat on her head. Bottom left, fast forward, there's the hat. It's not on Chloe's head though. Somebody else has got it on. We spotted them 2 hours later over there with a very distinctive hat. So we made it our mission to make sure we got that hat back. So we got closer and closer to them. And eventually I just tapped the lass on the shoulder and went, "Where did you get your hat?" She went, "I found it over there." And I just showed her a photo. I showed her the top left photo of Chloe in the hat. I said, "It's hers. Any chance we can have it back?" She was like, yeah, no bother. So there she is in the bottom right with her hat back. So yeah, a story. That hat went all the way around with Shaw Park last week. A little bit muddy. So it'll get washed and make it to the next event. Maybe she'll be tomorrow. So that was a related thing that came out of my trip to Manchester last week. And that was a trip northwest, up the M6 and sort of 20 miles away from Manchester. We pulled into the services to go grab some food, use the services, and in comes 5 or 6 supporters buses filled full of football fans. So you're thinking, Friday night, Liverpool v Bournemouth. Must be all the Bournemouth fans on their way up to Liverpool for the game. But oh no, this was 5/6 coaches full of fans being bussed in for a home game. Now I just shook my head and thought, which other club does this happen at? There is another club, Manchester do. If you go to Manchester, you go to Old Trafford for a home game, their car park is full of coaches for their home fans. I don't think there's any other clubs in the country that are like that, where you're literally shipping in loads of tourists or fans from outside of the city for a home game. You would never see Newcastle fans getting bussed in there. Literally hundreds of them travelling up from south to head to Anfield for their little tourist day out. Made me chuckle just a little. But yeah, that's my lifestyle. Hopefully Malcolm's got a lot more lifestyle to give us next week whenever he gets back. But we'll see where we get to with that. So yeah, tomorrow for me is Kings of Leon, Cortinas Ratings in Newcastle, a little festival. So it's been a busy old August. I reckon I'll have covered about 6 or 7 gigs or festivals by the time this month ends. Chloe is already pestering me to find something for next week because tomorrow is the last thing we've got in the diary. So we'll see what happens there. Anyway, we'll move on swiftly to some football. Week 1 is in the hutch, as we say. Malcolm, I think, finished 5-5, bit of a mixed bag. I think the highlights for Malcolm was Nottingham Forest at a decent price, and he took the draw in the game between, which one was it? Villa Newcastle was a good one for the draw. So good picks there. Malcolm's lock hit. He had the Liverpool Bournemouth over 2.5 and both teams to score. My lock hit, I also had Liverpool to score 3 or more in that one. So the late goals helped me out there. And I think I was similar. I think I was 5-5 as well. Very, very much a mixed bag. My ACCA hit. The ACCA was the title contenders, all to win. Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal. So that came in at around about 3-1. So ACCA hit, both locks hit, and we both came out in profit from the week. So a decent start in what I thought was going to be a hard week. It's always hard when we haven't got any meaningful form to go off. But we got there. We've got 1 week to go off this week. I've got 10 picks. I've got all my exotics. And all I've got from Malcolm at the moment is the slow roller. So if you're sitting there with £22.23 in your account, having rolled it up on Malcolm's pick last week, don't worry. The slow roller will still roll this week. Stay tuned to the end for Malcolm's next slowly rolling pick. So yes, that's where we're at. Week 1. First of all, I want to talk quickly about Predict Addict. For those of you who did join our prediction league, and it is not too late for anyone to jump in and join that. If you want to join predictaddict.co.uk, you can join from anywhere in the world. The league code is 43455, so you can still get in even though you're a week late. You might be falling behind some people, but you won't be falling behind KJ Hallback, who gets a special shout out because he got 10 out of 10 wrong last week. Not a single correct result from KJ Hallback. That's some effort. He must have went bold. He must have went really, really bold on some of those picks. So yeah, just having a quick look at the table. Top in the table is Graham Walker, who got 2 correct and 6 correct outcomes, puts him on 12 points. Son is up there. He also got 2 correct results. Nobody got more than 2 correct scores. 2 of them out of 10 is not a bad outcome. I'm sitting around tied 5th. Got 1 correct result and 6 correct outcomes. So it was all very, very close. Still all to play for. KJ Hallback, I expect to see you making a bit of a comeback this week. But otherwise, everyone, don't forget to put your picks on before Friday. And let's see how we're looking after week number 2 on Predict Addict. Week 1. I'll come to that in a second, actually. I'm going to jump into the ads because I've remembered now. And if I don't do it now, I'll forget. So we'll jump in and do our first ad reads. Brought to you by mybookie.ag. MyBookie is your place to bet on every sport, including MLB, WNBA, golf, and of course, football futures. MyBookie locations, easy deposit and lightning fast payouts using crypto. Highlight a bet that I like on MyBookie is what it says next, and I haven't highlighted one, so I'll just chuck out my lock now. My lock for this show is going to be Aston Villa at 6-5. Would be a bet I would like on MyBookie. Head to mybookie.ag, promo code PLGP for a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. Terms and conditions apply. That's mybookie.ag, promo code PLGP. And Rhythm. NFL is back on Rhythm. Last season, Rhythm was 76-66 against the spread and 22-19 on over-unders. Really shined on player props. For example, Tyreek Hill props. They were 13-5, which would get you a 31% return on investment. Rhythm also has MLB, WNBA, golf, college football. Go to the site today and start building your NFL models for week 1. Get your free 7-day trial at sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Rhythm. Right, week 1. Let's go. A good week for the main title contenders. Liverpool, Arsenal and City all winning. Landed my ACCA. City were the easiest ride of the 3. It was a good week for the promoted sides, or 2 of the promoted sides, Sunderland and Leeds, winning and getting off to good start. Other than that, there wasn't anything hugely unexpected. But what I did notice was a hell of a lot of overreaction last week after 1 weekend of football. Social media has already got 5 teams relegated. Burnley, relegated. Brentford, you're relegated. Everton, definitely relegated. As are West Ham and Wolves. So sorry if you are a fan of any of those 5 teams, because social media already has you relegated, I'm afraid, after just 90 minutes of football. Apparently that's it. No coming back. Man United are back. Big overreaction to Man United following a 1-0 defeat, which was actually a worse result than they achieved last year against Arsenal in the same fixture, where they drew 1-1 at Old Trafford. Their fans declared they are back. Ruben Amorim told us it demonstrated that they could beat anybody in the league. Reminder, they did lose the game 1-0. Individually as well, there was a few overreactions. I seen Gyökeres, or however you want to pronounce that, already be declared a flop after just 60 minutes of football. So Man United fans talking about Yoro as if he is a reincarnation of Maldini. I think everyone just needs to calm down a little bit. 1 week means nothing. Let's get a few weeks in the hutch and see where we are at from there. Less of the overreactions, please, after 1 week. I'm sure a few of those 5 relegated teams might make a little bit of a recovery this week, and suddenly they might be out of danger again. We'll see. In terms of eye catchers, start with Sunderland, really, unfortunately, probably have to. Really good value for their 3-0 win. I did watch that one. Good. I mean, West Ham were poor, but Sunderland really made it difficult for them. And as I say, 3-0 was no fluke. Forest as well made easy work of Brentford. I was on the road for that, so I didn't catch a huge amount of it. But being on the unders, I didn't enjoy them going 2-0 up in the first 15 minutes. I didn't enjoy Chris Wood getting 2 goals after our back day go Jesus to be their top scorer. I didn't enjoy the fact they've just signed Cali Moendo, or whatever he's called, from France as a new striker, who also affects my Ego Jesus bit. So well done, Forest. Good result against Brentford. Brentford, or as I say, one of the teams who everyone has already decided will be relegated because they lost a game of football last week. And a few of the strugglers did catch the eye for all the wrong reasons. Brentford, West Ham, Everton being the ones who were in the Premier League last year, where their first display wasn't pretty at all. I did want to quickly talk about the Everton game, and it'd be interesting if those in the chat could give their opinion on whether they thought it was a penalty or not. That was the controversy. That was probably the big controversial decision of the weekend, pen or no pen. For me, no penalty. His arm's by his side, and I get that he leans across, but his arm is still by his side. So if he himself summed it up well, I thought what he said is, if my arm is by my side and I'm standing straight, my arm is in a natural position. If I move my body across and my arm is still by its side, my arm is still in an unnatural position. Leaning one way doesn't move your arm into an unnatural position. So I get the fact it hits his arm and he's moved his body towards it, but the rule is it in an unnatural position? He can't dislocate his arm. His arm is attached to his body. He's actually trying to put his arm behind his back. So I think it's harsh. But does it surprise me? Absolutely not. The handball rule has been a shambles for years. I mean, we've seen the week before in the Community Shield, Liverpool got away with one where the arm is out here. So if you compare the two, how that one isn't a penalty, but yeah, Tarkowski gets punished for his. Seems very harsh to me. Callum thinks it's a pen. Joe Dollar says no pen. And Serial, quite rightly, says he doesn't know what a penalty is anymore. And I think that's probably where we are and have been for a while. Whilst we're talking about the chat, I should give a shout out to everybody who was in it, except for Malcolm, because he couldn't be bothered to turn up for the show. Malcolm's here, Joe, Callum, Danny Midler, who was questioning Malcolm's commitment, and rightfully so. John Cullafoy is given me some praise for the ad reads, which is always welcomed. Who else have we got? Slimmer18, new name. Don't recognise that one. Apologies if you've been in before and have missed it. But that's it. If you are in here, there's a few more people. If you are lurking, give us a shout out. Get your picks in here as we start going through the games. And help me out, because I am solo. So a bit of chat will make it all a little bit easier. Right. I think then that is about us ready to move on to week 2. 20 minutes of waffle already. Not a bad effort at all. I'm sure Malcolm will shout up if I've forgotten anything. And I know I've still got one more ad reads. I'll try and remember to do that in about 10 minutes' time. But anyway, we'll kick off week 2. Again, we're off on a Friday night. West Ham v Chelsea. 8 p.m. kick-off. That's 3 p.m. Eastern time in the US of A. West Ham are 4-1. Chelsea 4-6, -150. And the draw at 3-1. Two teams who were a little underwhelming last week. West Ham more so, obviously getting battered at a newly promoted Sunderland. Chelsea coming away with a draw against a decent Palace side. I think at home Chelsea would have expected better. Both me and Malcolm took Palace on a double chance. We thought Palace would get something, having looked at how strongly they finished last season, how well they'd started in terms of the Community Shield. I think looking at this week, it looks a good spot for Chelsea to get off and running with a win. West Ham looked awful last week. Sunderland absolutely dominated them in midfield. And I can't see any way a strong Chelsea midfield won't do the same to them here. I think they can absolutely boss this. Chelsea only came away with a draw, but they did create enough, and Palace are a decent side as shown by their end-of-season form and the FA Cup and the Community Shield success they've had. It might take Chelsea a few weeks to work out what the best combination is. Once again, they're sitting here with tons of forwards and not really knowing what their starting three is. So it might take them a bit of time to work that out, but I don't think it's going to matter this week. I like the look of Estevao when he came on in the second half. He looked lively. I think it'd be interesting to see if he might get the nod this week. They've got Pedro, they've got Delap, they've got Essa, they've got options all over. So things will work themselves out over the coming weeks. But I think whatever combination gets put out this week, Chelsea are going to be good enough to beat West Ham. I think they're almost backable here as a single at 4-6. In the interest of pushing the price up a little bit, I'm going to tag on the over 1.5 goals. I think Chelsea will definitely beat West Ham, and I think over 1.5 goals will be the way I'll play it. So yeah, my pick, Chelsea and over 1.5 goals at 10-11. Serial in the chat likes Chelsea -1. I looked at that as well. I think that's a good plus money price. I think you're getting around about 5-4, 6-4 for that one. So I don't mind the -1 on Chelsea. I can't see them. Callum thinks they will beat West Ham. Joe's not so sure, but West Ham did nothing for me last week. So yeah, we'll stick with Chelsea. Bob D likes Chelsea to win 0 as well, which might not be a bad shout. Hopefully it's a 2-0, so I'll land my Chelsea and over 1.5. So that's your Friday night game. Next up, we've got the 12:30 Saturday between Man City and Spurs. Man City are 1-2, -200. Spurs around 5-1, and the draw at 7-2 plus 350. So two teams here, Man City and Spurs, who had a fairly easy ride last week. City taking on Wolves and finishing up 4-0 winners. Spurs seeing off Burnley 3-0. Neither of them ever looked in any doubt from quite early on in their games. It has been a bit of a bad week for Spurs this week in terms of the transfer market. Having thought they had Eze all but wrapped up. I think it was Tuesday night, Eze was definitely going to Spurs. And by 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, Eze was definitely going to Arsenal. It's the second time this season, this Spurs, because Morgan Gibbs-White was down when Forest dug their heels in and said, no, not happening. And Morgan Gibbs-White the next day signed a new contract. So Spurs are having the struggles. I can see Spurs fans on social media getting a little bit touchy about it. The failure of the club to land the players they want. They are looking for a number 10 to replace Maddison, who's going to be out for a while. So they do look a little bit tight. A little bit light up front with Son now not an option. Obviously, he's gone. Maddison's out long term. And it didn't matter much last week against Burnley. But I think they may find it a bit trickier here against Man City. You would certainly expect they would. Richarlison, I thought, looked lively last week for Spurs, as he did against PSG in the Super Cup. But whether he can do it consistently is always a question mark around Richarlison. I think consistency has always been an issue with him. Spurs have done all right in this fixture recently. They've won 2 of the last 3, including at the Etihad last season. That was a crazy 4-0 to Spurs. I'm sure I took City handicap or something stupid like that. I actually remember I was driving to Birmingham that night, and I remember getting to Birmingham and checking my phone and saying Spurs were 4-0 up. That was a little bit unexpected. So yeah, they've got good form in this fixture. And I think Spurs can certainly compete here. Certainly get on the score sheet. I would slightly favour City, but would I want City at 1-2 at home? I mean, I understand the price, but I think Spurs were expecting to be a bit better this year. 1-2 City didn't really have me wanting to take City on handicaps or anything like that. Because I don't think last week's results for either team tell us a ton about these teams, both playing pretty poor opponents. And I think City will be better this year. I think I've said that for a few weeks now. I think they will improve. I think they need to get the Etihad, their home ground, back to being a bit of a fortress. It wasn't last year. They dropped too many points at home last season. So I want to see a little bit more of City against half-decent opposition before looking at things like the handicaps and goals and stuff like that. So I do like the goals. I prefer to go down the total goals, though. I want to keep Spurs involved in this. I took City goals last week and done all right. Took City to score in both halves and landed that one. But as I say, I wanted both on my side here. Over 2.5 is far too short at 4-9. But I think we could get more. Maybe a 2-2 or a 3-2 Man City. I'm going to take the over 3.5 goals in this one. It's a plus money price at 11-10, plus 110. So that'll be my pick here. Man City v Spurs, over 3.5 goals at 11-10. Just having a quick look in the chat. Danny Midler likes Haaland to score and win at 10-11. That's a good way of getting City up to a reasonable price. Joe Dollar likes Man City and both teams to score and over 2.5 at -115. So as well, that 3-2 City that I just mentioned would land us that one. Callum likes Spurs. He's got Spurs double chance. I think Spurs can get something. As I say, the head form recently would suggest Spurs are live in this one. Serial likes the over 3 goals. And Joe Dollar's also putting out Man City and under 4.5 goals. So plenty of picks there in the chat. I am going to take a drink because I'm talking far too much here. Let's see if I can remember to edit that slurp out later. Probably not. Who's bothered? Nobody. Anyway, moving swiftly on to the 3 p.m. Saturday games. There are 1, 2, 3 in true Malcolm style. There are 3 Saturday games. Just for the Bacchus family, I thought I'd count them out. Starting off with Bournemouth v Wolves. Bournemouth are 4-5 favourites, -125. Wolves 5 plus 320. And the draw is 14-5 plus 280. 2 teams who lost last weekend, but against 2 of the favourites to win the league. Bournemouth losing to Liverpool, Wolves losing to Man City. Not hard, though, to see why Bournemouth would come into this as favourites. Obviously, they're at home, but also they were far more competitive against Liverpool than Wolves were at Man City. Bournemouth consider themselves a little bit unlucky, having conceded so late on at Chiesa, and then Salah put the cherry on the cake, getting the 4th. So 4-2 looks like a comfortable win, but in reality, it was far closer than that. Wolves, on the other hand, were dead and buried quite early on in the Man City game. Had it not been for the gutsy performance, let's say, from Bournemouth last week, I might have fancied Wolves as a dog here, because I've been quite low on Bournemouth in the build-up to this season. I thought they really fell off towards the last part of last season, and they've obviously been ransacked in terms of their defence. But the same can be said of Wolves in terms of the players they've lost. You know, they've lost Ait-Nouri, Cunha, some big players missing, and Bournemouth still. As I say, they didn't catch me out. I didn't like Bournemouth at all, but last week gave me a bit more reason to favour them here. The reason being, and Malcolm pointed it out before week 1, is that they have struggled in terms of the defenders they've lost. But in terms of the attacking options, they've still got tons there, and they showed it last week in the game against Liverpool. Evan Nielsen, Semenyo, Kluivert are still around. So they've still got those attacking options. And I think that gives them the edge here for me. I can just see them having a little bit too much for Wolves. Might be another high-scoring one. Might get a few goals at both ends. But Bournemouth 4-5 isn't a bad price here. I wanted to take the Bournemouth team total. I like Bournemouth to score 2 or more. It's a little bit shorter at 8 to 11. So I've gone with a bigger price. I'm going to take Bournemouth to beat Wolves. Bournemouth on the money line at 4 to 5, minus 125. Joe Dollar in chat also likes the Bournemouth money line. Callum likes Bournemouth to win and score over 1.5. So he's co-signed both of my shouts there. Serial is in there with a Semenyo goal or assist. It's around about even money. Or Semenyo for an anytime goal at plus 185. So around about 7 to 4. Some good picks there. And I think everyone is alive with Bournemouth in this one. Not much love for Wolves. James Mafia's in the chat. James, how are you doing? If you're just joining us now, you will see Malcolm is not here. Couldn't be bothered. Claims technology doesn't work in Turkey or something like that. Who knows? He's probably just full of Turkish lager. But there we go. Right, moving swiftly on. The second 3 o'clock game. Actually, before that, I am going to tell you about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Best Ball Mania is happening all summer long, giving away $15 million in prizes, including $2 million first place. No waiver wire, no arguments about trades. Best ball is the best way to play fantasy football. Underdog also a great place to play Pick'em, where you can win up to 500x. And Underdog's got a brand new offer for new customers. Play just $5 and get a $50 bonus when you sign up with code PLGP. Right then. That's a short ad read that. I was expecting another one. Hopefully I didn't forget to copy another one over. But there we go. There is definitely another one. Give me 1 second and I'm going to find the rest of my ads. No. Where are we? There we go, yeah. Right. I won't be getting top marks from John Cullifay for this one. The world's greatest sportsbook, Circa Las Vegas, is hosting the world's biggest pro football contests, Circa Million, Circa Survivor, and Circa Grandissimo, with over 21 million in guaranteed prizes. You can't call yourself a true DJ if you are not competing in the Circa football contests. Come hang out with the SGPN at Circa Contest Weekend, August the 21st to August the 23rd. That is today, so you better get your skates on if you're going to get to Vegas. For an amazing weekend, including live shows and open bars. Plus, you get 15% off a stay at Circa with promo code SGP15. The contests are open to everyone. Sign up with the help of SGPN's official. Go to footballcontest.com and use promo code SGP to get $50 off your proxy fees. And that is ad read. Right then, back to my notes. Over to Sunday. Are we into Sunday yet? I feel like I've skipped a game here. Brentford v Villa. Here we go. The final Saturday game then, is it? Again, completely lost with where we're at. But anyway, Brentford v Villa. I think this is a 3 o'clock Saturday game, but who knows? It's definitely on Saturday. Brentford are 21 to 10, plus 210. Villa 6 to 5, plus 120. And the draw 13 to 5, plus 260. Brentford Cree is in the chat telling me that was an absolute shambles. And that would be correct. But Cree, I did nail the first one. So, cut me a bit of slack here. Brentford well beaten last week at Forest, whereas Villa came away with what they'd probably see as a decent point against Newcastle in a game where Villa were a little underwhelming, I thought. Newcastle lacked the cutting edge to see them off, but I thought were comfortably the better team. Villa didn't create a ton in that one. And Brentford had been tipped before the season to struggle, to drop right back, having lost Mbeumo. Wissa is expected to leave. More importantly, Thomas Frank's gone. Thomas Frank having been in previous years, not really been replaced with a man of any kind of calibre. Utara has came in to bolster the attack this week, but I still think it's going to be a tough season for Brentford this year. That opinion. Villa should have too much for Brentford. I think, as I say, the draw for Villa against Newcastle wasn't a bad one for them. The performance wasn't brilliant, but I think they can be expected to go a bit better this week. The head-to-head record in this one is all Villa. Brentford haven't beaten Villa in the last 7. Villa have won 3 of the last 4, including both games last season. So I think Villa do seem to have Brentford's number in the past. Both teams need to improve on last week's show, and that's obvious. Brentford giving up 3 goals to Forest, who had been struggling for goals in pre-season. Brentford made it very easy for them last week, so that doesn't bode well. But Villa managed only 3 shots last week against Newcastle. Didn't create a ton themselves. But taking last week's results against the strength of their opponents, I think I would still fancy Villa here. At 6-5, I just think they're a good price. I don't mind the team total either, evens for Villa to score 2 or more. But I'm just going to keep it straightforward. I think this one looked a straightforward, better team, decent enough price. I'll take Villa to beat Brentford at 6-5, plus 120. Joe also likes the Aston Villa money line. Cree has jumped into the Newcastle game already. Cree, we're not into Monday yet. Just a little bit of patience, please. We'll get there. Moving on, finally, we have another 3 p.m. game. The battle of the 2 promoted sides. We've got Burnley hosting Sunderland. I haven't got the prices noted down for this. This is a shambles, this. Let's have a quick look then. Burnley priced at 6-5, plus 120. Burnley favourites for this one. The draw is 21-10, plus 210. And Sunderland are 5-2, plus 250. Contrasting fortunes for the 2 teams last week. Burnley getting beaten well and comfortably by Spurs, and Sunderland well and truly seeing off West Ham. So can Burnley turn things around this week against an opponent who they might be expected to be around come the end of the season? The head-to-head doesn't look great for Burnley. They haven't beaten Sunderland in the last 3 attempts. They've failed to score against them in the last 2 games. So the 2 games last season, they lost 1-0 at Sunderland. They drew 0-0 at home. That was Burnley all year long, wasn't it? 1-0s and 0-0s all over the place. Danny Midler's pointed out his pick straight away. Stinkfest, under 2.5 goals. We'll see if we land on the same pick, Danny, in a moment. Sunderland played well last week. At home, they were aggressive. They played on the front foot, and West Ham struggled to deal with them. I think Burnley, being at home, can probably deal with them better than West Ham did last week. Now, I'm not getting sucked into the trap of fading Sunderland every week, because we saw a good showing from them last week. And I don't want to sit here like the stereotypical Newcastle fan telling you Sunderland are going to get beat every week. But I came into this one with a clear pick in my mind, and that was the unders, like Danny. First thought was unders. Burnley were built on the defence last year. It was always unders. Wasn't last week. But the last 3 head-to-heads between these teams, I saw a total of 1 goal. The unders is a little bit short at 8-13. So I pivoted to something slightly different, but following the same approach. I'm expecting it to be low goals. The pick I've looked at is both teams to score no. This would have hit in the last 3 games between these 2 sides. And even though these 2 teams had 6 combined goals in their games last week, 2 3-0 outcomes meant the both teams to score no would have hit in both of those. And I think this could be a good play most weeks for Burnley, both teams to score no, because there's every chance Burnley are going to get shut out from one week to the next. And against average sides, there's a good chance Burnley might be able to keep teams out as well. So the pick for me is going to be both teams to score no between Burnley and Sunderland at a price of 4-5, minus 125. Next up, we have a 5:30 kickoff on Saturday evening. It's 12:30 Eastern time in the USA. This one sees Arsenal taking on Leeds. Arsenal are around about 1-4, minus 400. Leeds at 17-2, plus 850. And the draw is around 5-1, plus 500 for that. Arsenal didn't set the world alight last week. They were efficient enough. They took their chance when it came to them and then defended it well. As I say, the new striker, Gyökeres, or however you want to pronounce it, didn't feature hugely. Man Utd kept him pretty quiet. But as I say, Arsenal did enough. They'll fancy their chances at home here against a newly promoted side. Leeds did get off to a good start, beating Everton in slightly controversial circumstances. But I think even regardless of what you think of that penalty decision, I thought they were deserving of the win. On the balance of play, Everton were very poor in that one, and Leeds created enough to have easily got another goal or two in that one. Arsenal have dipped into the transfer market again this week. Havertz is ruled out for an extended period of time, and Arsenal have quickly delved into the transfer market and snatched Eberechi Eze from under the noses of Spurs. They're now also being linked, I've seen, with Morgan Rogers. I'd be very surprised if that one happened. Surely Villa aren't going to sell Morgan Rogers for anything under a significant amount of money. And I'd be surprised if that one was to go ahead in the next couple of weeks. Anyway, back to the game, though. I just can't see Leeds troubling Arsenal too much. Arsenal at 1-4 leaves you scrapping around a bit to find a pick. I do think Arsenal will win. I think they'll probably win more comfortably than they did last week against Man United. But it wasn't one where I necessarily wanted to put the faith in Arsenal's attack, having only got the one goal last week. So I didn't want to take Arsenal in handicaps or team totals or anything like that. So instead, I'm putting my faith in Arsenal's defence. I think Arsenal will win, and I think there's a good chance they can keep another clean sheet. So Arsenal to win to 0 is going to be my pick. That's available at even money. So that's Arsenal to win to 0 against Leeds. At evens, Joe Dollar, resident Arsenal fan, fancies Arsenal and the over 2.5 goals. He also fancies Gyökeres to get 2+ shots on goal this weekend. So, moving on. We don't need to read those out because I've already done them. So we're over to Sunday. We kick off Sunday with a 2 p.m. kick-off between Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest. Crystal Palace are 27-20 plus 135. Forest 21-10 plus 210. And the draw 23-10 plus 230. This one looks a really competitive one. Possibly one of the hardest ones on the card in terms of trying to find a winner, I felt. Palace in good form, having won the Community Shield and picked up a solid point at Stamford Bridge last week. A little unlucky with a disallowed goal. That was another moment of controversy. Probably the right decision. I learned a new rule last week about how many players can be in a wall and how many yards away you need to be from a defensive wall and all of that lot. But anyway, Palace a little unlucky not to come away with a winner. They will be without Eze, who looks to be wrapping up that Arsenal move in the next day or two. Eze is going to be a big miss. It sounds like they'll move quite quickly to try and bring in a replacement. They're looking at El Kanous from Leicester at the moment. That one might move quite quickly once the Eze deal is done. They do still have plenty of options in attack with Mateta, Saw, Munoz, another one. We've got plenty of options there, and I still think they can compete here even without Eze. Forest surprised me last week, not in beating Brentford, because I didn't expect a ton from Brentford, but I did expect it to be low scoring. I didn't see Forest scoring 3 goals in the first half. That wasn't what I expected. Forest have been problematic for me for the last 12 months. I struggled to get them right from one week to the next. So anyone taking any notice of my pick on a Forest game does so at their own risk. I favour Palace slightly here at home, but not just at home. It's the home. It's the overall form for Palace. It stretches over a long period of time. We're seeing them do well in the Community Shield. We're seeing them do very well in the FA Cup final against Man City. But looking beyond that, they're now 10 competitive games where they haven't lost. And in that 10-game streak, they played Liverpool twice, Man City, Villa. They've not lost to any of them. They haven't lost since losing to, I think it was Newcastle in April. They've also faced Forest in that time. They didn't lose to them. They drew 1-1. So they've played top sides throughout this run, and they've done it again, as I say, in the FA Cup, in the Community Shield games where, there's something on the line. So the Palace form is rock solid. Eze missing is a big loss for them, but I still think they can compete here. So if I had to take a side, and I'm not taking a side, then Palace would be it. They would just edge it. But I have gone elsewhere with a pick, and it's a pick that let me down with Forest last week, and it was the under 2.5 goals. But I'm going back there. I think we've got 2 good defences here. Forest, we've talked about time and time again how well drilled they are at the back. But Palace, in that little 10-game run I've mentioned, they've had 5 clean sheets in those 10 games. 6 of the 10 went under 2.5 goals as well. And the head-to-head between these two has hit the unders in 7 straight games now. There's only been 5 goals in the last 4 meetings between these two sides. So the unders hits week in, week out, not week in, week out, every time these two come together. As I say, 7 in a row now. The head-to-head has gone under 2.5. So I'm going to go back to the world of Forest and the unders, and I'm going to take Palace v Forest under 2.5 goals at 4-5 minus 125. The Unscripted Sports Show is in the chat. What's up? Hope you are well. Thanks for joining. Good time to see if anybody else is in the chat. Do shout up. Don't be a lurker. Let us know you're there. And if not, at least hit the thumbs up on your way out. Drop a comment in the YouTube stream. Drop a 5-star review if you're on Apple. And if you're on Spotify, hit the 5-star button and leave us a comment. If you could, we have got more people listening. We had good numbers last week, so it'd be good if people are listening and enjoy it. You might not enjoy it as much this week. It's a lot of waffling from me, but there we go. Do leave us a review saying how good I am, and maybe we can just bin Malcolm off for good. Anyway, moving on. Our next 2 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. And this one sees Everton take on Brighton in the first competitive game at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. Everton's new ground is open business this week. Everton are 21-10. Is Everton at anything like that for Everton? Brighton are 13-10 plus 130. And the draw is 23-10 plus 230. Having watched Everton on Monday stink the place out versus Leeds, initially, my thoughts were this should be quite easy. You've got to go with Brighton, haven't you, plus money. I've got a little bit of fear, and it's the only thing putting that little bit of fear in is the stuff around this first game in the new stadium and all the hype that brings and the sort of, you just feel it might be a scenario that brings a little bit more out of Everton than they served up last week. 1-0, the final score against Leeds last week. Everton got beat, but they gave up so many chances to Leeds. Leeds finished that one with 21 shots and an XG of almost 3. Leeds unlucky not to have got more than 1 last week. A better side would certainly have taken advantage and beaten Everton by more than 1-0. So can Brighton do that this week? I thought Brighton were the better side against Fulham. They led for most of the game before giving up an equaliser late on. And I can't, in my right mind, take Everton in any way here. Brighton should really be the pick at 13-10. But on the off chance that Everton are a little bit rejuvenated in front of home crowd or, and all that ceremony that goes with the first game in the new stadium, I just felt the safer pick might be to go with Brighton goals. Because as I say, Leeds should have got more than 1 last week. Brighton over 1.5 is going to be my pick. They won this fixture last season, 3-0, on the first day of the season as well. So early in the season, again, here. I think they're the better side. They're coming into this having looked a better side than Everton did last week. I want Brighton on my side in some way, shape or form. I'm going to have Brighton score 2 or more at 5-4 plus 125. Joe Dollar likes Everton, draw no bet in this one. So we are on opposite sides of that. I just don't know what to expect from Everton. They can go and win 3-2 and I can still land my bet. But yeah, the one thing putting a little bit of doubt in my mind, opposing Everton, is this whole, all the razzmatazz that's going to go around this new stadium and whether they can, get their fans to lift them up from where they were last week. Next up, anyway, the primetime Sunday afternoon game sees Fulham hosting Man United. Fulham are 5-2 plus 250. Man United 21-20 plus 105, and the draw 13-5 plus 260. And the first thing for me is the prices. Man United as a short price favourite on the road didn't appeal to me at all. And I get they looked better last week, and I'm not sort of brushing that off and forgetting about it. Cunha and Mbeumo were lively last week. They certainly looked a more threatening outfit going forward. But it's one game, and it's one game against a good side. And those were the games where Man United showed up last year. They showed up in games against Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City. That was where Man United turned up when we faded them, and they would pick up a draw or they'd pick up a win in those games, totally against expectations. It was teams against the other side around where Man U didn't do so well. Although against Fulham, they did do okay. I think they won the head-to-head, both games 1-0 last season. But yeah, I don't like Man U at the price. It's far too short until we've seen a bit more of Man United. Sorry, they might be better this season. They should be a lot better this season. They've just spent 200 million on a new attack, but you want to see them start scoring before we start to trust them. And I'm not there at that point. So not jumping on them just because they looked okay in a 1-0 defeat in the first game of the season. As I say, the head-to-head favours Man United. They won both games 1-0 against Fulham last year. They did lose to Fulham on pens in the Cup. I found it a tricky one. I just don't want to jump to any conclusions on Man United. And Fulham are a team I don't trust from one week to the next. So I swerved all of the main markets in this one. And I've jumped into a stats pick. And it's a stats pick I really love. Man United failed to score last week, but they showed plenty of endeavour in and around the box. They racked up 22 shots against Arsenal last week. They don't even need to get close to that this week to get us a decent price. So Man United shots, creating chances wasn't the issue last season. It was finishing them. It was the fact Xerxes and Højlund were getting on the end of them all. This pick would have landed in 4 of the last 5 competitive games for Man United, and it would have cleared it by a good way in several of them. So I think there's a great ladder opportunity here as well. Man United total shots over 15.5 is 5-4 plus 125. As I say, they got 22 last week against Arsenal. They've got in their form, as I say, those 4 of the last 5 games this would have hit. I think 3 of those 4 would have went over 20 as well. So there's potential to go up the ladder to take Man U up to 20 shots on goal, or 20 shots is the pick. So the pick for me, Man United v Fulham, is going to be the Man United total shots over 15.5 at 5-4 is a pick I love in that one. Let's see in the chat what we've got. Joe Dollar likes Fulham moneyline. Wouldn't oppose anyone doing that. Danny Midler says, hopefully United looking better skews the prices. And I think it has. You've got to see more than one game from Man United. Man United fans got totally carried away with how positive a performance that was last week. It was one game. And as I said earlier, that same game last year, Arsenal at Old Trafford, they drew 1-1. So, worse result than last year with supposedly a better team. I'm not saying there won't be a better team this year. They probably will, but let's wait and see a bit of form before we start getting too carried away there. Finally, 53 minutes down, Christ. Solo Baz is going to drag this out for an hour. We move on to the Monday night game, the highlight of the week, or is it? An 8 p.m. kickoff between Newcastle United and Liverpool. Newcastle on 9-4 plus 225. Liverpool 21-20 plus 105. And the draw 14-5 plus 280. Rumours that the winner of this one will be able to load Alexander Isak onto their team bus and march him off to wherever they want, or unfounded. Apparently that's not happening. But all of that nonsense might add a little bit of extra space to this one. You never know. Newcastle dominate the head-to-head in this fixture, having won the last one game between the two sides. A famous victory in the Carabao Cup final at Wembley, a game in which Dan Burn scored, as did another bloke whose name I've now completely forgotten. But in all seriousness, the head-to-head record in this one is absolutely shocking for Newcastle when it comes to league form. And it doesn't usually make a difference whether it's home or away. Newcastle haven't beaten Liverpool at St James's Park since 2015. Newcastle have a terrible record against Liverpool. They did get a draw last year, though, with Gordon, Shaw, and some other bloke whose name I've already forgotten, getting on the score sheet. As a Newcastle fan, hard to get excited for a game against Liverpool these days because we just never win, except for when we did at Wembley. That was a good one. But Liverpool left it last week against Bournemouth, and the early season looks we've had at Liverpool suggests there'll be some opportunities for Newcastle here. If only we had a striker to take them, he can't be asked. So we'll just have to ride with what we've got. But yeah, having seen Palace and Bournemouth both compete against Liverpool in the last couple of weeks, and having overcome the Liverpool jinx for Newcastle at Wembley last time out, there should be reasons to be optimistic. There's the 3-3 draw at home last year as well, where we competed really well with them. Would I take Newcastle at 9-4? Probably not. The long-term head-to-head form doesn't tell you to do that. But do I want Liverpool at evens? Not really. Not from what I've seen. of Liverpool. And the other reason I wouldn't take Liverpool at evens here, and it's not to say they won't go out and win. Newcastle thrived in these games at home last season. We lost some terrible points at home against some terrible teams. But Liverpool, City, Arsenal twice, Chelsea, Villa, Forest, all of these teams in the top 7, not one of them came to St James's Park and came away with 3 points last year. So St James's Park in these big games is a tough place to come in terms of getting the 3 points. I'd take a draw now, but I wouldn't want to be at Liverpool at evens for that reason. So I do expect us to compete. And I thought the safest way of playing it was goals, because taking a side didn't appeal to me in this one. Over 3.5 goals is going to be my pick. We've just seen Liverpool feature in a 6-goal thriller last week. It was 3-3 in this fixture last year. We have the 2-2 with Palace in the Community Shield for Liverpool. Liverpool's games are just screaming goals at the minute. We know they're looking slightly vulnerable at the back. So I'm going to go for goals again here. Over 3.5 goals between Newcastle and Liverpool at 13-10 plus 130. Danny Midler is shouting out Joe Linton for a card. 11-5 Joe Linton. If you're getting 2-1 for Joe Linton in any game, just take it. I put him in my cards treble, actually, a bit more about that. My cards treble last week was very unlucky. We took Joe Linton was the first one, and that landed in the first half. The next one was Lukic for Fulham. He had more fouls in that game than anybody else. I think he had 5 or 6 in the end and didn't get yellow carded. And there was where the referee waved play on, clear foul, clear yellow card foul, waved play on, and didn't bring it back to Lukic. So we were a little bit lucky not to land the double, and then Ugarte didn't start, so that one didn't come in. But not far off. We were unlucky not to get the double. Joe Linton's a good shout for a card at 11-5. I actually like Bruno Guimaraes as well. I think Bruno Guimaraes will be absolutely fired up for this one. So Bruno Guimaraes features in my card treble in a moment, so I will get to that in a moment. Joe likes Newcastle draw no bet. Thinks Newcastle got a chance, and he likes the over 1.5 team total for Newcastle, which could be a good shout. Right, finally, we will wrap up with the exotics for this week. My luck this week is going to be Villa at 6-5 plus 120. I like Villa this week. My dog, I looked around, there wasn't a lot of dogs I fancied, but maybe based on what we saw last week, I would take Sunderland at 5-2 as a dog over Burnley. My scorer is going to be Watkins. He didn't get much of a sniff against Newcastle, but I think you'll see a bit more this week. And I fancy Villa this week, so Watkins, 13-10 anytime scorer, 6-1 first or last. Watkins will be my scorer pick. My corned beef pie acca is going to be, and we hit this last week, so let's try and get back-to-back accas in. I'm going for 3 overs here, 3 over 2.5. It's Man City versus Spurs, Bournemouth Wolves, and Newcastle v Liverpool, over 2.5 in each. So that's Man City Spurs, Bournemouth v Wolves, Newcastle Liverpool, over 2.5 in each of those at 3-1. Acca is going to be 3 draws to go for, and again looked at those 3 games I could find where I think tight games, and some of this might go against the picks I've got earlier on, but it's a long shot for a reason. It's 33-1, or what was it about 22-1? I think it was. 3 draws: Burnley v Sunderland, Palace v Forest, Everton v Brighton. Those are the 3 draws. I think that comes in around 25-1. I haven't wrote down the price for some reason. But yeah, Burnley, Sunderland, Palace, Forest, Everton, Brighton, all to be draws, will be my stake and still knacker. And I'll finish off with my card treble again. I'm going to go with Romero for Spurs. He's always a card waiting to happen. In a big game against Man City, I like Romero to get us off to a good start on the Saturday. On the Sunday, we're going to go for Elliot Anderson for Forest. And then into Monday, Bruno Guimaraes for Newcastle. He'll be fired up against Liverpool. Probably get booked in the first half. 30-1 for the treble. Romero, Elliot Anderson, Bruno Guimaraes, 30-1. Stick the doubles in as well. So if we can land 2 of them, we'll cash a decent winner. And I would say I love the Anderson pick as a single. Elliot Anderson for Forest. 3-1 he is as a single for a yellow card. He got booked in 4 of his last 5 games to end the season. And that's sort of, he's going to be playing all the time now. He's banging form. He'll probably get 90 minutes out of him every week. Elliot Anderson, 3-1 for a yellow card this week is a pick I love. And finally, 1 hour in there, Malcolm has messaged me with the slow roller pick. So Mal's £20 slowly rolled into £22.23 last week. And if you sat there with your £22.23 waiting to roll it over again, Malcolm has provided the pick. So the £22.23 this week will be rolled onto Man City v Spurs over 1.5 goals. That £22.23 will return £25.40. So that's your slow roller. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is 10 games of Premier League football all wrapped up. Turns out we don't need Malcolm Bamford to somehow waffle on for an hour. I don't know how I've managed that. I will listen back and see how much of the humming and hawing I need to edit out. Not really. I can't be arsed with any of that. So if you're listening on podcast, you're just going to have to put up with it. Thank you to everyone who was in the chat and who shouted up. Danny, Joe, Callum, James Matthew was in. Cree was in. I should shout out. Cree did put his pick in earlier on for Newcastle, Liverpool. He liked the both teams to score and over 2.5 goals. So that works for me with me on the over 3.5. But yeah, thank you for everyone who did drop in. Don't forget to hit a thumbs up on your way out. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review or comments on the podcast. As I say, early in the season is a good time to do that. Give us a little bit of support. If you do enjoy what you're listening to, there's plenty of you listening. So if you're coming back, subscribe, like, rate, review, leave comments, all of that sort of stuff. It is greatly appreciated. We will be back next week. I'm not sure when Malcolm returns from his travels, but we'll be back next week, probably Monday. If Malcolm's not around, it might be another solo one. I know he should be back for the next Premier League round of games. But we'll be back. Keep an eye on the socials and I will let you know when we are back. We'll recap this one. If you're having a bet this weekend, good luck. If you're following my picks, good luck even more. But for now, we'll finish off with Malcolm's famous line. We shall see you down the road. Cheers.